What would you do, if the place you called home became your prison? If the walls you trusted to protect you began to whisper, scream, and strike you with unseen hands? Would you run? Or would you stay, knowing that no place is safe from what waits in the dark? Tonight, these are not fairy tales or campfire stories. These are two of the most terrifying hauntings ever recorded in human history, hauntings witnessed not only by families, but by police, journalists, and neighbors who swore they saw the impossible. The first shook the quiet suburbs of London in the late 1970s, a haunting so intense that newspapers and investigators from across the world rushed to see it for themselves. The second unfolded in a peaceful American town in the 1990s, where a young couple's dream home turned into a nightmare of scratches, screams, and shadows. These are not legends. These are records of the supernatural. Stay with me, if you dare. Story 1, The Enfield Poltergeist. It all began on a warm August night in 1977. Peggy Hodgson, a single mother raising 4 children in a modest council house at 284, Green Street, Enfield, North London, had no idea her family was about to enter history's most chilling case of paranormal activity. That night, her daughters, Janet, 11, and Margaret, 13, screamed from their bedroom. When Peggy rushed in, she saw something that froze her blood. The heavy wooden dresser in their room was sliding across the floor, on its own. She tried to push it back against the wall, but as soon as she let go, it moved again. And again. As though something invisible and stronger than her was determined to push it forward. At first, Peggy believed it might be her children's imagination. But the nights that followed proved otherwise. The walls began to shake. Not random noises, knocks that answered questions. If Peggy asked, 1 knock for yes, 2 for no, the walls obeyed. Soon, objects were hurled across the room. Toys, cups, even a Bible flew through the air as if swatted by unseen hands. The first witnesses. Terrified, Peggy called the police. 2 officers arrived. In her official report, one officer swore she saw a chair rise from the floor and slide several feet across the room with no human touch. Neighbors were called. They too witnessed toys flying and voices echoing in the dark. Then came the journalists. From the Daily Mirror to paranormal investigators, dozens of outsiders entered the house, and many left shaken. Janet's transformation. The most disturbing of all was what happened to 11-year-old Janet. One night, as her family watched, she was hurled from her bed, caught mid-air by photographers. She began speaking in voices, deep, guttural, in multiple tones at once. Sometimes she would say as an old man, claiming to be the spirit of a man who had died in the house years earlier. She had no control. Sometimes she laughed in that voice. Sometimes she cursed. Sometimes she revealed knowledge a child could never know. Investigators recorded hours of these conversations. To this day, those tapes remain some of the most chilling evidence in the history of the paranormal. 18 months of terror. For nearly 18 months, the Hodgson family endured this nightmare. Cold spots appeared even when heaters were on. Fires started without reason. Whispers filled the silence of the night. And every time skeptics visited, something happened to challenge their doubt. Skepticism and legacy. Yes, some accused Janet of faking certain incidents. Photographs show her seemingly jumping off her bed. But could an 11-year-old child fool police officers, neighbors, and trained journalists for over a year and a half. Even today, no one has been able to explain it fully. The house at 284 Green Street still stands. And locals whisper that the walls still remember the screams. Story 2, The Sallie House. Thousands of miles away, in Atchison, Kansas, stood another ordinary-looking home hiding extraordinary terror. In the early 1990s, Tony and Deborah Pickman moved into the charming White House with dreams of raising a family. But their joy quickly turned to dread. At first, it was small things. Lights flickering. Objects moved from their place. The family dog barking furiously at empty air. But soon, it escalated. The attacks. Tony began waking with strange scratches on his chest and stomach. At first, he thought it was nothing, but then the marks appeared before Deborah's very eyes. She saw them carve into his skin as if from invisible claws. Sometimes, the scratches burned as they appeared, leaving him screaming in pain. Toys lit up by themselves. Shadows darted across the halls. And in the dead of night, whispers called from the corners of empty rooms. The identity of Sallie. Investigators were called. They believed the house was haunted by a little girl named Sallie, who allegedly died in the house decades earlier during a botched surgery. But Tony soon realized this was no innocent child. He described seeing a small girl with hollow, lifeless eyes. And behind her loomed a darker, taller figure. Something ancient. Something malevolent. Using the mask of a child to trick the living. The breaking point. The scratches grew worse. The family lived in constant fear. One night, Tony felt a burning so intense that he collapsed, begging to leave the house. Finally, the Pickmans fled, abandoning their dream home. Legacy of Terror. To this day, the Sallie House is infamous as one of America's most haunted homes. Paranormal investigators continue to visit, and many leave with scratches, burns, or terrifying nightmares that follow them long after they've gone. Some places, once touched by darkness, never let go. 2 different homes. 2 different families. 2 different countries. But both were touched by something no science can explain. The question is not whether these hauntings were real. The question is, if it happened to them, what's stopping it from happening to you? So tonight, when you turn off the lights, ask yourself this. If a whisper calls your name from the shadows, will you answer? This was 2 real hauntings that shook the world. Told by the boogeyman.